Oh, well, this is like a wow. What a moment that counts. I am here with my dear, dear friend, Craig Francis. Oh, you know, Craig is my soul brother. We went through our medical residency together. And he he's really one of my closest friends during medical residency, and he's just somebody I've admired all these years because he is one of the most loving people you'll ever meet, and his ability to make people feel special um, in his presence. I've been so inspired by you, and when I speak about the ability, the gift of being able to give and receive love, you have that natural gift, my brother. So I'm so blessed to be here with, and I'm going to also share with you just the extraordinary things that at scale that Craig is doing. But we thought we would just start, sharing a bit about our friendship.
Ah, uh, absolutely. Thank you, my brother. I don't know if you realize it's been, I guess, 18 and a half years now.
Yeah.
We first met. And for me, it was the kind of thing when I met you, I knew that we were going to have this very special relationship. You were somebody who shows yourself so easily and well. You show your vulnerability and you allow people to feel very, very close to you. And that was true of us right off the bat. I also got to see you in so many situations where I admired you, came to truly love you. In addition to your incredible intellect, just watching the way you cared about people, you always had this spirituality about which comes out. It's no accident that you've spent your career doing what you're doing because that was always part of what you did, even though you were so deep and trained in science. But some of my early memories, just to share, one was I don't know if you remember the day where we were in Sausalito and we were studying for the boards, and we had Harrison's open. It was a few thousand pages. It got to the point where I could open to any page, and you would be able to answer every question. You'd be able to tell me exactly what was on the page. I was such in awe of you back then. I remember it was a sunny day. And then, we used to play tennis a lot. This amazing tennis player. It got to the point where I'd say, I need some more humiliation.
Yeah.
So, I feel like getting some humiliation today. So that was a special thing. But I also just wanted to say a few words about your family and all that. I got to see you before and then subsequent to having your family. And I remember when you met Sue and what it was like. And, people use the word soulmate in a kind of trite way, but for the two of you, it was so real, uh, is so real. And you both gave me faith in that whole concept of having, a true soulmate and this remarkable relationship where you made each other better and more in the present. And then I remember when Zaki came along, and you always want to be good and love your friends' kids and your family's kids, but you never really know what the connection is going to be. And the reality is, it's kind of like a lottery. You don't know how personalities are going to meld or what have you. But Zaki, for whatever reason, from an early age, I just absolutely connected with him so deeply and loved him. He was, as you well remember, he wasn't the biggest of children kind of growing up,
Yeah.
had this amazing energy about him. And he loved football right off the bat. And I would throw him the football all the time.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted to do was have me throw him the football. And I don't know if you remember a day, we got a little bit bigger when we were playing at a park, I think near where you live.
Yeah.
And you got a little return of the humiliation that because I was throwing the ball to Zaki and you couldn't keep up with him. He was too
Yeah, he was,
damn fast. He was too damn fast.
yeah.
and Zachy would go on to, be a football, star and lacrosse star, but it was his perseverance and his ability to just do things that was remarkable. And I felt very, very close to him. And I still do, even though I haven't had a chance to talk to him in a little.
You would be.
And then Dilly came along, and Dilly used to make me laugh all the time. And I have to remember, but for whatever reason, Dilly liked to punch me in the stomach as hard as. And he would just, and the greatest, for whatever reason, my family, come from my father, would have this gift where we could really take a punch in the stomach. I would let Dilly just tee off on me, and then thinking that I was, I must be hurt, but I wasn't. He'd start laughing, and eventually would hurt his hand. And then to watch the two boys, on some of these videos, their poise, their brilliance, their wisdom beyond their years. Dilly talking about, a saying that I've always said, make your life into a movie worth watching. Talked about, making, a movie where it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes is one of his videos. But to actually watch them and all of they said has made me so proud. So it felt like saying a little bit about the background, Danny, but what you've been working on is no accident, that you would find a way to help people lead from within and help people to live a loving life, which are things that I've tried to remember, during my career.
Yeah, well, let's talk about you now, because you've embodied living a loving life. I always remember, one of your favorite sayings, which I believe you learned from your dad, and actually as you watched your mom go through her transition, your dad would say, I want to suck the marrow out of life, right? And you've lived life to the fullest. You've lived a loving life. And it's because you've been very intentional about your relationships. People love you and they naturally love you. You've done extraordinary things, but you never talk about yourself. You've always got this enthusiasm when you get together with somebody, no matter what they're doing. And in a moment, you're going to hear how just the extraordinary things that Craig has done, where it's at a scale that's remarkable. But you get together and you make somebody, you can almost, like, anybody can say something to you, and your response will inevitably be, that is the most incredible thing I've ever heard. That is just brilliant. You would affirm people to such a degree that they came alive in your presence. They come alive in your presence. So that's why people love being around you, because you make them feel special. You've got that incredible gift. And I imagine right now, the work that you're doing, how people are invested in you. So let me just give an arc to your story. And we finished our internal medicine residency together. And I remember you sitting in the garden, and we were in Berkeley. We had a place in Berkeley, and you were sitting in the garden and you said, Danny, I've been given an opportunity. I'm really struggling because I've been accepted to do an MBA at Stanford. And I've also been given this opportunity. This was in the heydays of the .com. I've also been, given this opportunity to actually join a company. I think it was yourpharmacy.com, right?
Good memory as always, Dan.
Yeah. So, and I said, I asked you, I said, well, in this branch point decision, why would you want to do an MBA? And part of it was for connectivity. So my suggestion to you was, and you may have come to this, I said, well, why don't you learn on the job and make connections in the real world, in this .com ecosystem, exploding ecosystem, and that's where you'll make your connections. And you transitioned into this unbelievable adventure. And um, this was the days where just this dot-com bubble exploding. And I remember about a year later, you had an exit. And theoretically on paper, if I could remember that you were worth about $17 million, like a year later, I was trying to wrap my head around that number. Like, how was it? You know, because I was doing shift work at $60 an hour at the airport. And I was thinking to myself, well, you know, what was that year worth per hour? But so you had this incredible, but then, you know, like many companies, there was, you know, a lot of that was on paper. And then you had this interesting thing where some of that vaporized.
Oh,
All of it, or all of it vaporized. But then you actually, but here's the key. From that experience, you leveraged a pathway to where you are now. So can you share your next steps on that pathway, how you actually stayed in this exploration of how you could serve at your highest level with your gifts to where you are right now serving in the world?
oh, great memory, Danny. Great memory. Well, yeah. So actually, you know, just on that, we did sell the company, a company that went public. And there was a transient period of time. I was 35 years old, and I had about 35 million on paper. You learn a lot about yourself through these. I never did anything for financial gain in my life, and I didn't change anything I did. So even though that was on paper, I went out immediately. Our company was bought, so I needed to get another job, and I started working another job immediately. And I never paid attention to the stock price at all. My dad did, but I think it pained him a lot more than me. But eventually, you know, we never really earned that money. It was the internet boom, and it all went away. Didn't change anything from what I did or any decision I've made, nor would I ever advise anybody to do anything for the financial gain. You know, do something that matters to you the whole way. And if financial gain comes out of it, great. You were a great coach to me, because you were wise beyond your years at realizing that I was trying to find connections with other human beings, and I was trying to find a way of scaling things that would help the healthcare system. And I didn't know exactly how to do it. My dad did it by becoming chairman of a department and being in academics. And I did some research, you probably remember, and I wrote some medical books, you might remember, but
Yeah.
I found that I wasn't connected enough to people when I was doing some of those things. And I wanted to feel more of an integrated connection.
I want you to come back to just
business.
before you go ahead, because you mentioned your dad. I just want you to share. Your dad is an icon in his own right. He was the author of. He's a psychiatrist, and he he was a chairman of the Duke Psychiatry,
Duke, yeah.
And he wrote the diagnostic manual for the way we make psychiatric diagnoses. So there's this DMSR-4. Your dad wrote the manual of that actually sets the definitions of psychiatric diagnoses. Was that fair to say?
He was the editor of the 4th edition. And if he heard you say that, he would say, you know, yeah, so what? That was my
right.
to do it. He would, you know,
the usual Francis tradition of modern.
He'd be like, you know, it was a living. That's what he would say. I needed to make a living.
Yeah.
But he's a special.
Yeah. So pick up the thread.
Being who spent a lot of his life helping. Yeah.
There was a thread that you went from the buyout of your company with yourpharmacy.com. You then found a way. You were working for, I think, Bill Gross, and then you actually did .tv. You want to share a little bit about that? And because that was also exciting.
Oh, you have an incredible memory. Incredible, as always. So I had the weirdest cold call of my life when I had seen Bill Gross. This is not the Bond person, but the founder of Ideal Lab in Pasadena. He was on the cover of Fortune. He had built an incubator, Ideal Lab, during the internet boom with the idea, very prescient idea, of helping companies get started easier and providing all those services and guidance. And Bill's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Everyone who's ever spent an hour with him would say that. But the weird thing for me is that he somehow got my phone number after I sold my company and cold called me. And he said, "This is Bill Gross. I've seen that you're a physician and you've done some great work in the internet. I'd like you to come work for me." And so I just couldn't believe it. It was the weirdest surreal thing. And he made me an offer, and I went to work in Pasadena. And there, under the roof there, was actually the start of paid search. So everyone knows Google now, but back then there was no Google, and there was a company called GoTo that had 40 employees. That was literally the beginnings of the whole concept of paid search, and that was a great way of prioritizing the internet. And GoTo would end up being the foundation of Yahoo, and then there'd be Google and all of that. But that was what we were doing early on. I saw a company there called .tv, and they had actually licensed the domain name from Tuvalu. Weird, like Kurt Vonnegut type story. This small country had licensed its top level domain. And, it was the beginnings of, what you're now seeing right now when you're looking at Danny right now, the beginning of all the concept of YouTube and broadband. And I thought, one day everyone is going to be broadcasting, and having a .tv domain name made a lot of sense. And we had this amazing business model where we had companies around the globe sell our domain names. I would literally walk into work the next day and there'd be $100,000 of cash that had been deposited overnight without a human being ever touching it. It's literally the best business model I saw in my life. It was post crash, so it had just an amazing business model to it. And we got bigger, and I loved my team. We recruited some of the most brilliant people ever to build the company, and I ended up helping to run the company. I became president of the company, and we eventually sold the company to VeriSign, a company you all probably know in Mountain View, and that was a great deal for everyone involved. For the country of Tuvalu, it gave them more than their GDP during the sale, which is an amazing story and very rewarding for me. I was one of the biggest visitors to Tuvalu. They would have
exactly. You would go there as a dignitary of state, right? You would speak to the nation.
I literally did. I went there on, I remember, Women's Day, and I spoke to the whole country through a translator. Spoke to the whole country. The person who was on my board, because of all the positive political capital, became the next prime minister of Tuvalu. And Tuvalu became the 189th member of the United Nations after have enough money. And for those 10,000 people there, who are all amazing people, who, beautiful 8-island atoll there, but it also became a lightning rod for climate change, because they were never more than about a dozen feet above sea level. And it was amazing problems that they would have during floods and all this. And in any case, with the proceeds, they were able to help teach the kids. They looked into moving people also to better locations, and paved all the roads and all this. It was a very rewarding, fulfilling experience.
So you saw the direct impact of, you saw what the idea of, it's almost what conscious capital can do, that the mix of actually supporting vision, really kind of connecting in relationships, and then bringing the money to actually build infrastructure in terms of understanding how it can make a difference in people's lives, which is a great segue to where you went next in terms of understanding the power of capital, the power of conscious capital. So next, what's the next chapter of this unbelievable story of your life?
Like you, I care deeply about human beings. You mentioned that I can connect with people, make them feel good. it's you can only do that if you sincerely feel it, or else people know that
Yeah.
you don't really care about them. So for me, it's always this sincere love of human beings, which I attribute to both of my parents. But my mom was there was no one better than my mother at that. And everyone loved her deeply. So I attribute a lot of my deep love, to her. But in any case, I was trying to find a scalable way that I could feel connected to the healthcare system and to make it better. And so after selling the company, I spent a year that was a difficult year. You might say, oh, it's great to not have to work for a year. But I actually felt, disconnected. I was, by myself. I would go for runs on Manhattan Beach. And I was, quite lonely in a lot of ways. And shows you money does not buy in any way happiness. And but I spent my time trying to look for my next job, and I said I want to now help other entrepreneurs. I had enjoyed being an entrepreneur, and so I went and I looked in private equity where there were firms that were great at helping entrepreneurs, and I felt very attracted to the one I'm at now, Summit Partners, where the company works with entrepreneurs that frankly do not need them.
Right.
I like that very much, where, this wasn't traditional venture capital where you were going to get money. The companies that Summit invests in were companies that already were doing pretty well. They were making cash flow. A lot of times their founders were wildly successful human beings. And we were frankly not being chosen for the money. We were being chosen for advice and expertise. I realized early on money was a commodity, and any firm could supply money. So it was much more about how did you help people get better at what they do, and that's what attracted me to Summit, whose business model was all about we have no business model unless we're good at helping people.
Yeah.
So I went there. I consulted with many firms, but got offered a few jobs and accepted the one in Summit in 2003.
So can you just so Summit is a venture capital. It's one of the leading venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. Is that, you want to give a little bit of a thumbnail to the where, how does Summit Partners, when people hear the name Summit Partners, what are some of the connections that they make about the impact?
Absolutely. We're a private equity firm. So one way of breaking down all of private equity would be you have venture capital firms that invest in the early stages, often before there's revenue of companies, or maybe when there's not a lot of revenue of companies. You have growth equity, which is what we do, where the companies generally already have proven business models, and our job is to help them expand and become very, very successful, larger businesses. And then there's the buyout area where they're investing in very, very large businesses, and often at times controlling them and trying to improve their operations. So we are within the family of private equity, and we are considered a leading growth equity firm.
So can you just share, I mean, would you be comfortable to share like what kind of capital are you managing, at the scale, and who are some of the companies that you have nurtured in their expansion?
Very good. Yeah. So we've managed $25 billion of capital. The most recent fund is about a $5 billion fund, and we're international. We have offices, here in the Bay Area, in Menlo Park, in Boston, and in London. We have a whole wonderful team out in London. I've enjoyed going and visiting them every year. And we again invest in companies that really are choosing us to scale their businesses. Done about 500 investments. We've been a very successful firm. If you'd invested with us the whole time since we've been around since 1984, you'd have over a 30% return net of our fees. So we've done well by investing in great human beings in good markets. We can be a minority investor or majority investor. We're kind of agnostic on that. In healthcare, has been, depending on the year, anywhere between 1/4 and 1/2 of the business at Summit. It's what I'm very proud of. They were already doing amazing things before I got there in healthcare, and I'm, been very, pleased with our wonderful team. One of the early investments I did, you asked what we've invested in, was a company I'm so proud of, a company called Healthcare Partners, which really was the model early on for value-based healthcare. So everyone talks about value-based healthcare now, and the idea of not paying for service, but actually for better performance. Keep, the idea that we could take care of a population more cost effectively, and keep them out of the hospital, and also with wellness and other kinds of quality things that I know are your passion, social determinants of health, all of these other things. If we don't, necessarily reward the companies on a fee for service basis, but more for taking care of a population. And Healthcare Partners was a company that got started decades ago in Los Angeles. The leader of that company, one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met, Bob Margolis, a physician. And he was somebody who helped this group of physicians come together and to build this model of care where they would take on the risk of taking care of patients. So they would get paid a per member per month fee by the insurance industry. And if they did a great job keeping people out of the hospital and reducing specialist cost and keeping people healthy and well, they would do better. And that model is, has spread. And now it's been part of the model behind the whole ACO movement. And really what is the most important thing our healthcare system needs to do is to integrate and coordinate care, and to pay in a different way for that care. So very proud to be part of their story.
Yeah, I mean, it's really remarkable because you're a part of the vanguard of advancing these models. And just to say that it's my understanding that you're leading up, you're a managing partner in the firm, and you're leading up the healthcare division, right?
Yes, I have other colleagues and partners that I love very dearly in the firm. But yes, I'm one of the leaders of the team. Yes.
Beautiful. So, and then in addition to that, you also have a leadership role in your industry. Can you share a little bit more about that and the impact of what you're looking to do with that collaboration?
Thank you very much. Well, the Healthcare and Private Equity Association is this wonderful group where it's a national organization, and all growth equity firms can be nominated and to join that. I think there's about 70 members of leading growth equity firms that are a part of that. And I would tell you that in my career, it was one of the greatest honors of my career when, my colleagues, offered me to lead the organization and for me to become a president for 2 years. And it was very, very rewarding for me. I worked very hard at it with a great board and lots of people involved. And the goal of it was for us to learn from each other, to try to actually improve this healthcare system. So rather than thinking of careers as just making investments and making dollars, how can you actually influence the healthcare system for the better? The great news is that good investments in investing in things that benefit healthcare are highly correlated. So if you invest in things that are not good for all the constituents of healthcare, the patients, the providers, and the payers, you will probably not do very well as an investor over the long haul in healthcare. So it's a great thing that these things are correlated. And so our through private equity, I'm a firm believer that we can invest in business models that benefit the country, that we can help consolidate this very fragmented system that now with COVID, everyone is realizing just how fragmented and the lack of coordination that exists in this country, which got started because doctors were small business people at the start of the revolution when they came, American Revolution. And so the system was built from the ground up versus the top down. So we have high variability. You can't have high quality with high variability. You need some levels of standardization. And so a lot of what we do in private equity, and again, our industry is not perfect, and there can be unintended consequences of, consolidating in certain markets where prices could be higher. So there's certainly some things that can go wrong by being involved in private equity. But on balance, our industry is about trying to help improve quality, help standardize, help bring out models that work. And so I'm overall very, very proud of what the industry has done, over the 2 decades I've been involved in it.
Oh, well, Craigie, I have to tell you, I continue to be inspired by you and what you're doing at all levels. What you are demonstrating is certainly an expansive scale. I mean, you really are there's a lever that you have that you're creating possibility at a large scale in the world. And yet it comes, right down to the core of your heart. It's all relational. And so I so admire that. So I wanted to actually also extend to you an invitation. I think I'd shared with you beforehand this wonderful opportunity that we all have together to, within the Global Wellness Institute, this Living Well from Within initiative will be housed, that gives us the opportunity to convene world-class influencers to engage in global change. And I would just want to welcome you into that coalition, because I know that you will bless this coalition with your insight, with your wisdom, with your resources. And I hope the coalition will bless you as well with actually opening a worldview to even greater possibility of the work you're doing. So I would.
Thank you. Thank you for this, Danny. Yeah, I would love to, everything that you've been doing, you've been finding a way to scale these connections, how people can live better lives, how they can become better leaders. I'm always trying to do that. I'm going to be sharing your book with my global healthcare team at the firm, and we would like to become better and better what we do. Everything is about that. And I'm honored to be a part of this, and I want to help in every way. You personally have always helped me lead a very present life. I mean, I've always felt, I was not raised with religion, I think but I was raised on science. But around you were raised on science, but you also always had a spirituality to you that I always was palpable to me. It is, and always has been. And people always say that tough times or an illness, may not change the person, but they reveal who they are.
Yeah.
And I think that your illness has revealed to everyone what I've always known about you and the amazing human being that you are. Oh. And for that, there is the silver lining, of course, that you always talk about.
Well, Craigie, my heart, I love you, my brother. I love you. I'm excited to see you hopefully soon.
Very soon.
And I'm excited to be part of this coalition and really appreciate for our blessed friendship.
Me too. What did I used to? I think it was boot or booty, right?
Booty, yeah.
That's what they say in South Africa.
Yeah.
I used to call you that all many years ago.
Well,
thank you. I love you. I love you, Danny.
Okay. I love you. I love you. I love you.